If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The Cleveland Browns have found themselves once again at the center of a swirling storm of drama, and this time, it revolves around one of the brightest stars in the NFL, Myles Garrett. It's a saga that has been unfolding over the past several months, filled with twists, turns, and plenty of tension that has left fans, analysts, and insiders alike on edge. Garrett, the Browns' dominant defensive end, has been one of the most electrifying players in the league, capable of game-changing plays that can completely alter the trajectory of a contest. Yet, despite his individual brilliance, the team's struggles have seemingly cast a shadow over his accomplishments, and it appears that frustration is starting to boil over once again. The story began in the offseason when Garrett initially shocked the football world by requesting a trade, a move that immediately sent ripples through the organization and sparked intense speculation across sports media. He claimed that his ultimate goal was to play for a Super Bowl contender, a desire that, in the eyes of many, is entirely understandable for a player of his caliber. Super Bowl ambitions are the holy grail for elite athletes, and Garrett's pursuit of the pinnacle of the sport is hardly unusual. Yet, the manner in which he approached the situation made headlines and fueled debates. From a media tour that showcased his ambitions to a failed attempt to personally meet with team owner Jimmy Haslam, the episode painted a picture of a star wrestling with loyalty, ambition, and personal frustration. As the offseason progressed, Garrett seemed to have a change of heart, retracting his trade request and signaling a willingness to remain with the Browns for the upcoming season. The team, which had endured years of inconsistency and disappointment, breathed a collective sigh of relief. Cleveland fans dared to hope that their superstar, a generational talent on the defensive line, would commit himself fully to the team's goals and help push the franchise toward long-awaited success. But as any longtime observer of the NFL knows, the path of a superstar's relationship with his team is rarely straightforward, and the complexities of talent, ambition, and organizational culture often collide in ways that create tension and uncertainty. Fast forward to today, and the situation has begun to take another dramatic turn. According to Cleveland Browns insider Tony Grossi, Garrett's frustration has resurfaced, and it's reaching a level where another trade request is not out of the question. Speaking on ESPN Cleveland's The Really Big Show, Grossi didn't mince words in assessing the current state of affairs. He pointed out that Garrett is performing at an elite level on the field, playing some of the best football of his career, yet these efforts have not translated into the team-wide success he craves. The disconnect between personal achievement and team outcomes has been a central theme in Garrett's recent expressions of frustration, and Grossi emphasized that this gap could very well fuel another dramatic request for a trade. Grossi highlighted that Garrett's motivations go beyond mere personal statistics or accolades. Based on his flip-flopping, I'd say fact, Grossi said when asked if Garrett might request a trade again. He is playing his best football, and it's not having an impact. He wants to be in the spotlight of the Super Bowl. He wants to have that big podium with thousands of reporters around him on media day. He wants that. He's not going to get that in Cleveland. This statement cuts to the heart of what many analysts believe is Garrett's core frustration. Despite his dominant play, the Browns have not positioned him as the centerpiece of a team capable of contending at the highest level. Super Bowl aspirations are not just a casual desire for Garrett. They are a driving force behind his career decisions. The spotlight, the media attention, and the opportunity to compete at the very peak of the sport are factors that can heavily influence a player's perception of his current team environment. For Garrett, the allure of playing on a team that consistently competes for championships is undeniable, and the absence of that dynamic in Cleveland may be creating a sense of professional and personal dissatisfaction that is now spilling into public discourse. Furthermore, Grossi noted that simply achieving individual milestones, such as a future Hall of Fame career, may no longer be sufficient to satisfy Garrett's ambitions. While recognition and legacy have historically mattered to great players, the modern era of professional football places a premium on championship pursuits and immediate relevance in high-stakes situations. This reflects a shift in the mindset of elite athletes who view winning at the highest level as the ultimate validation of their talent and career choices. It is not that Garrett is ungrateful for his position or his success. Rather, It is a matter of alignment between personal goals and organizational performance. This nuance is important because it paints Garrett not as a mercenary, but as a competitor who wants to maximize the opportunities that match his extraordinary skill set. In many ways, this is entirely understandable. Yet, it also raises questions about timing, strategy, and communication, particularly when it comes to balancing personal ambitions with team loyalty. Reflecting on the past few months, one can't help but wonder if Garrett might have approached the situation differently. The initial trade request, followed by the public backpedaling, set a precedent that is now influencing perceptions about his consistency and commitment. Some critics argue that if he truly wanted to change his environment and pursue a Super Bowl contender, he might have been better served by pushing harder for a move during the earlier stages of the offseason, rather than wavering. In sports, timing can be everything, and decisions made at critical junctures often define the narrative surrounding a player's career. Garrett's choice to retract his trade request initially may have temporarily calmed tensions, but it also planted the seeds for renewed scrutiny once frustration resurfaced. The delicate balance between advocating for oneself and maintaining team cohesion is one that elite players must navigate carefully, and Garrett's situation exemplifies the complexity of that challenge. Fans and analysts alike have debated whether his actions are strategic, emotional, or a combination of both, and the conversation continues to evolve as the season approaches. At the same time, it's essential to recognize the human element in Garrett's story. High-level athletes are constantly under immense pressure to perform, and when team success doesn't match individual effort, frustration is a natural response. Garrett's passion and intensity are part of what make him a transformative player, but they also contribute to moments of visible emotion, which some interpret as impatience or restlessness. The expectation that a superstar will simply accept circumstances without expressing dissatisfaction is unrealistic. Professional athletes are deeply invested in the outcomes of their work, and their desire to achieve greatness can sometimes manifest as public displays of frustration. That said, the methods used to communicate dissatisfaction, such as skipping voluntary off-season training activities, can have complex implications for team dynamics. While it sends a message about personal boundaries and expectations, it can also create friction with teammates and management, highlighting the tension between individual agency and collective responsibility. Looking ahead, the situation with Myles Garrett presents a fascinating study in the intersection of talent, ambition, and organizational culture. The Browns are faced with the challenge of retaining a generational player whose personal goals may not perfectly align with the current trajectory of the team. How the franchise responds could shape not only Garrett's immediate future, but also the broader perception of Cleveland as a destination for elite talent. Will the Browns find a way to bridge the gap between player ambition and team performance? Or will they be forced to consider a trade scenario that could dramatically reshape the roster? The stakes are high, and every decision carries significant weight, both on the field and in the court of public opinion. For fans, insiders, and the wider NFL community, the evolving narrative around Garrett is more than just a story about a single player. It's a window into the complex realities of professional sports, where talent, desire, and organizational strategy collide in unpredictable and often dramatic ways. As the season draws nearer, all eyes will be on Garrett and the Browns to see how this chapter unfolds. Will he remain committed, channeling his frustration into dominant performances that elevate the team, or will we witness another trade request that shakes the franchise to its core? The answer will depend on a combination of factors: Garrett's personal priorities, the team's ability to compete at a high level, and the delicate negotiations that occur behind closed doors between player and management. One thing is certain: the story is far from over. Myles Garrett's journey is emblematic of the modern NFL superstar, whose individual brilliance is intertwined with the pressures of team success, media scrutiny, and personal ambition. Cleveland, meanwhile, must navigate this landscape with skill, diplomacy, and perhaps a bit of luck if it hopes to retain one of the league's most dynamic talents while fostering a winning culture that meets the expectations of fans and players alike. In the end, Garrett's saga is a reminder that professional football is as much about the narratives off the field as it is about the action on it. And this ongoing drama is likely to dominate conversations well into the season, leaving no shortage of intrigue, analysis, and debate for those watching closely. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. The NFL world has been buzzing with whispers and speculations for weeks, but what we heard recently might just shake the foundation of one of the league's most talked about teams. Myles Garrett, the defensive powerhouse, recently dropped a bombshell that has everyone talking, and honestly, it feels like the kind of story that could dominate sports headlines for months. According to sources close to the team, Garrett allegedly made it crystal clear that he would no longer play alongside Deshaun Watson, a move that, if true, is unprecedented in its boldness and intensity. Now, for those who've been following the league closely, you know that Garrett isn't one to mince words. He's a fierce competitor, a leader on the field, and someone whose presence can completely alter the dynamic of a game. So when a player of his stature makes a statement like this, it's not just a passing comment. It's an earthquake inside the locker room, and perhaps the first visible crack in what appeared to be a united front. Rumors have been swirling for a while that tension between Garrett and Watson had been building quietly behind the scenes. It's one of those situations where everything looks perfect from the outside, but inside, the atmosphere is charged with friction. According to insiders, Garrett expressed frustration not just about on-field chemistry, but about the culture surrounding Watson within the team. He reportedly feels isolated in his stance, almost as if his concerns are his alone, yet the weight of his influence carries the room. The shocking part is Garrett allegedly described Watson as being hated by the team, a word that in sports circles doesn't get thrown around lightly. Think about that for a second. When a superstar defensive end publicly, or at least to insiders, labels a quarterback as widely disliked, it sends a ripple that fans, analysts, and even rival teams feel immediately. In professional sports, reputation and locker room chemistry are everything. And the moment a player of Garrett's caliber casts that shadow, it's like dropping a match into a pile of dry leaves. It's important to note that Garrett's history in the league shows a man unafraid to take risks, both in play style and in expressing his opinions. He's someone who wears his heart on his sleeve, who demands accountability, and who expects his teammates to rise to the level of professionalism he brings to every practice and game. But the alleged comments about Watson go beyond the usual competitive critiques. They speak to personal dynamics, to an erosion of trust, and to a sense of incompatibility that can't be easily patched over. This isn't just about plays, passes, or defensive schemes. It's about a cultural and personal clash that could define the team's season. When insiders speak of a player being hated by the locker room, it's usually the tip of an iceberg that includes missed leadership, unmet expectations, and subtle social dynamics that most fans never see. Garrett dropping this information, even indirectly, hints that the iceberg might be much larger than anyone expected. The timing of this revelation is also something that analysts are dissecting intensely. The NFL season is already a pressure cooker, with every game scrutinized and every performance analyzed. A defensive star refusing to play with his quarterback, whether literal or figurative, is the kind of narrative that the media devours. Sources suggest that conversations behind closed doors have been tense, with Garrett reportedly making it clear that his willingness to continue on the field hinges on addressing what he sees as fundamental issues with Watson's presence and influence. Some insiders even hint that the tension isn't just about personal dislike, but about accountability, leadership, and respect in the locker room. Garrett's approach has always been about pushing the team to be the best version of itself, and if he perceives Watson as a barrier to that standard, the situation could spiral in ways that management will have a very hard time controlling. Of course, rumors like this don't exist in a vacuum, and the story has already ignited a firestorm of debate among fans, analysts, and former players. Some argue that Garrett's statements, if accurate, are a wake-up call for management to address internal dysfunction before it derails the season entirely. Others point out that locker room tension is nothing new in high-pressure sports environments, and that while the headline sounds dramatic, the day-to-day reality might be more nuanced. Yet, the word hated is particularly striking. It's rare to hear such a strong descriptor applied to a quarterback by anyone, let alone a teammate of Garrett's caliber. In the tightly knit, highly competitive world of the NFL, using language like that is almost an admission that the rift isn't superficial. It's deep, personal, and potentially irreparable. Sources close to team operations hint at private meetings that have allegedly taken place, where Garrett reportedly demanded that certain dynamics change immediately, or he would reconsider his position. Imagine the scenario: a team with championship aspirations suddenly facing the possibility that one of its best defensive players may opt out of collaboration with its quarterback. The strategic, emotional, and financial implications are enormous. Analysts are speculating about how management will respond, whether they'll attempt to mediate, issue a statement of unity, or even consider roster adjustments to prevent the fallout from impacting performance on the field. The buzz in sports circles suggests that Garrett's camp is not just speaking about preferences, but is positioning for leverage. And in the NFL, leverage is power to shape the team's culture and direction. Meanwhile, fans on social media are exploding with opinions, theories, and debates. Some are defending Watson, citing his athletic prowess and previous performances, while others are aligning with Garrett, pointing to the need for leadership and accountability in the locker room. The discourse is intense, polarized, and exactly what rumor-driven sports news thrives on. Pundits are already breaking down what this tension could mean for upcoming games, playoff chances, and even contract negotiations. The story is evolving daily, with no clear resolution in sight, and that uncertainty only fuels the fire. The idea of a superstar defensive player openly rejecting his quarterback on any level challenges conventional NFL narratives and adds a layer of intrigue and drama that rarely hits this magnitude outside of fictional portrayals. Even more intriguing is the human element behind these rumors. Garrett and Watson are both highly skilled, incredibly driven, and intensely competitive. Clashes between such personalities are almost inevitable in high-stakes professional sports, but what makes this situation compelling is the scale and visibility. Unlike minor locker room disagreements that are quietly resolved, Garrett allegedly making this known, directly or indirectly, ensures that the story will have legs. Teammates, management, and even opponents are now aware of potential friction, and in professional sports, perception can influence reality. The mere knowledge that there is internal discord can alter strategies, affect morale, and change the trajectory of a season. In this case, Garrett's apparent willingness to stake his playing status on his discomfort with Watson speaks volumes about his priorities, his sense of justice within the team, and his vision for how the team should operate. As the rumor continues to spread, insiders are watching for any signs of reconciliation or escalation. Will management step in to mediate and try to repair the relationship, or will this mark the beginning of a more dramatic shift within the roster? Could this tension lead to a trade, a benching, or some other dramatic outcome that would redefine the team's season? The speculation is intense, and every comment, every interview, and every practice observation is being dissected for clues. Analysts are combing through body language, game day interactions, and press conferences for any indication of whether Garrett and Watson can coexist on the field. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, as fans and media alike wait to see if this alleged rift will erupt into something that changes the landscape of the NFL. In conclusion, whether or not Garrett's statements are fully accurate, partially exaggerated, or misunderstood, the very fact that such rumors are circulating with this intensity is telling. It underscores the pressure, passion, and complexity of professional football at the highest level. The drama is real, the stakes are enormous, and the story is far from over. Myles Garrett refusing to play alongside Deshaun Watson and labeling him as a figure hated within the team is exactly the kind of narrative that makes sports thrilling, unpredictable, and utterly compelling. As insiders, fans, and analysts continue to unpack this situation, one thing is certain. The NFL is about to enter a chapter filled with tension, intrigue, and drama that could dominate headlines for the foreseeable future. Every move, every comment, every game from this point on will be watched through the lens of this unfolding saga, and the question on everyone's mind is whether the rift can be healed or if it will define the team's identity for the rest of the season. The buzz is real, the rumor mill is spinning, and one thing is for sure: no one in the NFL will be able to ignore the seismic implications of Garrett's explosive revelation. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!